Hello, friends. Hello. Happy Thursday. Welcome to Craft Your Joy Live. I'm super excited to be here with you today. It's the beginning of March. We're kicking off a brand new month. And this month, because you asked, we're going to focus on Inktense. So I've kind of have been focusing on different watercolor techniques and different mediums. And that's kind of the way we're going this year. So we're going to focus on Inktense. Everyone asked for it. I know I have shared it before on this channel, but I'm going to integrate Inktense techniques along with watercolor. And of course, we'll have our Gina K inks this month too, into this entire month's worth of content that I'm sharing on YouTube. Today, we're going to do a little paint along, paint and chat, and I'm going to walk through some of the beautiful things about Inktense and how you can mash them up with your watercolors. So today we're not going to make a card. We are going to paint some wildflowers and weeds. And if you were on my email list, that got sent out to everyone on my email list yesterday, so you could download that, paint along with me if you'd like, or if you're painting this on the replay with your Inktense and your watercolors, hello. Also, if you're in my community, that the line art handout was in the community. If you're not a part of either one, I would encourage you to do so. If not, it's also linked down below in the description. So, hello everyone. I see people popping in. This is exciting. I'm excited. Again, we're not going to make a card today. We will be making cards next week. My brand new stamp set release is going to release on Tuesday. I'm super excited for it. It's something different. I'll talk about that later. Anyway, hello, Cal and Judith. Hello, friends. Rhonda, Mary, Lynn, Catherine. Aww. Catherine just shared, the last pups from my litter have all gone to their wonderful new homes, so I'm happy to get back to crafting again. That's exciting. Hello, Darlene from Canada. Welcome, friends. Lynn. Cheryl. Hey, Cheryl. Cheryl Cranson's here. Hello, Tressa. Just printed it. Tressa just printed it out. Okay, let's dive in. We're going to just get right to it because I'm trying to keep this tutorial within an hour. We might jump over just a little bit, but if I keep on chatting, we are definitely going to jump over. So let's dive in, and let's dive into Inktense. Okay, now first, before we get started on our project for today, so the handout provided these little violas, and everything was kind of in a line art, but really light. You could print that out on your favorite watercolor paper. I printed it out today on a piece of Arches paper, 100% cotton paper. I've got two of them because I did two up on a sheet. Hello, Gloria. Gloria made it. We can keep this for reference. This is what we're going to be doing our techniques on today. So let me set that aside. Before we get going, I wanted to share Inktense. Okay, we're going to dive in. This is my Inktense watercolor pencil set. So I have shared this before. So I have this set of Inktense pencils. Now, just to talk a little bit about Inktense, they are intense. So Inktense, just some of the fun facts about them. Let's just dive in a little bit. Some of the fun facts about Inktense. We're going to use them today in their traditional pencil form. So they have that quality of being like a colored pencil, but they are not wax-based like a colored pencil, like Prismacolor or the Faber-Castell that I use. They're not wax-based or oil-based. They are pigment-based, and they dry permanent. So they're highly vibrant, pigment-based, and they dry like an ink. So they're like super, super, super vibrant, and they're water soluble. So they become like they're a watercolor medium, but they could also be used like a colored pencil. It's just that we're using water to activate and move them. Okay, friends, I just remembered something I forgot to share. If you have questions along the way, just pop question in the chat. My chat's over here. I will see it and we'll answer them along the way. Today, we are going to focus our techniques on using the pencils to add detail and levels of intensity and glazing to some watercolor. So I'm going to mix watercolor and Inktense together. We're going to do some we're going to paint our wildflowers and weeds. Okay, some other fun facts about them. Everything looks like really bright to me. Let me know in the chat if everything is color-wise, everything looks okay to you, because it looks super bright to me. It was super sunny, so I adjusted my lights for the sun, and then the sun went away and it got dark and it's super windy. You know, weather. So, okay. So Inktense comes in pencil form, and that's what we're going to be using today. So one of the color is right at the end of the pencil, and the name of the color and the number of the color is on the pencil. One of the things I don't love about the Inktense pencils is that there's very little color. The colors are pretty close, but in some of them they're not close to what you actually get from the pencil. And I kind of wish that whole color would be the whole color of the barrel, just from a visual standpoint, just to make it a little bit easier. Thank you, Kathleen. Looks fine. Check my volume. Oh, good to go. Make sure, like, if you have trouble hearing me, make sure you have me all the way up. But I'm going to pump up my volume a little bit here and let me know if that helps. I kind of pumped it up, and I'll move the microphone a little bit closer to me. But thanks for that. That's always a good catch to let me know about volume. Okay, everybody's sharing that it looks good. Thank you. Tressa shared that I've heard of these pencils, but have never used them. Great. Well, we're gonna all month. I'm gonna be sharing these and different techniques with them. Okay, so here's the pencils. They're permanent when dry, and so they're light fast, so they don't fade in the light. The other cool thing about these pencils is that they're great on other mediums other than paper. So great on wood, fabric, clay, things like that. Oh, great. Thank you, Gloria. Thank you for letting me know. The sound is improved for the volume. Okay. Some artists, there are silk and fabric artists that use this medium to do their art on silk, which is kind of really, really cool. Hi, Jill. Jill just popped in. Hello from Texas. Okay. My godson is in Texas. He's in Lubbock. He is a research student, and he just moved there in January. It's exciting. Okay, so I'm going to move my pencils over because I also want to share. Oh, great. That made a difference for volume. You know what? My microphone was a little bit far away from me. So that kind of, you know, made it a little challenging. Pump up that volume a little bit more. I'm looking at my volume thing. Okay. So Derwent Inktense. This is my set. Also, I haven't listed the supplies I'm using today down below in the description, but I will after the chat. Another thing, friends, if you're watching me live, you shouldn't see any ads. I know we've had that problem, but what I did is I turned them off. If you're watching me live, from now on, I'm going to turn off the ads. If you're watching on the replay, the ads will be on. So hopefully there will be no ads popping in. Okay. Now Inktense also comes in two other forms. Oh, that was pretty blown out. Let's close. That's pretty blown out. In other forms, the Inktense blocks. Oh, Catherine just said now she's getting an echo. Oh, you shouldn't now, because echo cancellation was turned off. So hopefully the echo isn't happening. Good Lord. You never know, right? I clicked the wrong button. Okay, so Inktense comes in blocks as well. And I have had this block set for a really long time. It's like a set of 72 blocks. What's really, really nice about the blocks is that you can use them for large areas, large spaces. You could also just use them and dip your brush in and use it and just paint right from it. We're not going to be using these today, but we will be using these this month, and I will dive into some deeper techniques with the Inktense blocks. Great, everybody's saying it's great. Yeah, friends, I had the echo cancellation button turned off. Duh, it was on, and then I turned it off by accident. Okay. Also, Inktense also comes in these pan sets, which are kind of fun to work with on the go. My personal favorite, though, out of all three of these is the pencil. And we're going to dive into why. We're going to dive into why. Okay. Now, I'm going to just come in. I was going to do like a whole little color swatch, but we're just going to dive right in to our project. So today, for our wildflowers and weeds, what we're going to be doing is we've got these 3 violas, and we have our weedy little leafery here. And we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of techniques, wet into wet, wet into dry, and I'll talk you through that whole process. And we're going to combine it with some of our watercolors. So some of the supplies I have, I've got a couple pencils out from Derwent, Inktense Pencils. I've got a dark purple, a light olive, a leafy green, a cadmium yellow, and a deep violet. And I might end up changing them out, but you can take a peek at the deep violet. There's deep violet. Oh, I love that. It's so pretty. Deep violet. What else did I have here? Leafy green, which I know is over here. Leaf green is that little bit of a darker green. And then I grabbed a lighter green, that light olive. That cadmium yellow is right here. And did I only grab... Oh, I did deep violet and dark purple. Here we go. This dark purple and this deep violet. These two right here. That mauve is beautiful too. Oh, look at that color. This dark purple reminds me so much of a color that I have on this palette called Moonglow from Daniel Smith. I love that color. Okay, now this palette right here just has some, I believe these are all Daniel Smith colors. I don't know. I just went into my cabinet and looked for a palette where I had some purple. So I've got some violet here in watercolor. So we're going to be mixing our watercolor and our watercolor pencils, Inktense pencils together. Okay. Now, I'm going to get started first with a little bit of wet into wet. I'm going to do, I have a class in my classroom at craftyourjoy.com called Blobs to Blooms, where I teach you how to paint violas from scratch using brushstroke techniques. And we also do a lot of wet into wet techniques in that class. So today we're going to do some of those similar techniques and do a little bit of blobs to blooms. And what I mean by that is I'm just going to lay down some water and just kind of get this whole thing wet. So I'm just really just laying down a lot of water. Now this paper is super thirsty because it's 100% cotton and it's a very, very, very thirsty paper. So I'm just really getting this nice and wet. You can see how wet this is because we're going to do a little bit of blobbing. What I call blobbing. So I'm just activating the purple that's in here. I might need some more now that I look at it, but we'll see. I'm activating both of these and just getting them nice and juicy. And then I'm going to drop some blobs in, clean off my brush, and then just kind of move this around the flower. Drop these blobs in, and what I'm doing basically is I'm staining the paper. I'm staining the paper with a little bit of color, and we're doing a wet into wet. And know that this feels a little bit, we've been doing some really controlled watercolor techniques lately with watercolor pencils. And we're going to be able to do super controlled techniques with our Inktense pencils today. But I'm challenging you to kind of follow along with me here and get a little blobby. Okay. And just let the water and the paint do their thing. And we're just going to coax it around a little bit. See how I'm just coaxing it around a little bit. And then I'm going to take a little bit of this green. See what I've got here. This is like a serpentine green. I'm going to take a little bit of that light and dark green and just kind of blob it in. See how I'm just kind of dropping it in where that leafery is? And I'm not going to worry about the lines. I want those lines to be crisp. So I'm going to use Inktense for that to really kind of get those lines crisp. And I'm just adding a little bit more water and letting that look like a huge blobby mess. Now, the technique we used was wet into wet. I've got some like lines here. I'm just going to go in and with a little bit of a paper towel and just dry that up. And then look at that. I just love what we got here. We've stained the paper wet into wet with some watercolor. So this is a great way we're going to be mixing our watercolor techniques with our more refined techniques with the pencils. Hey, Karen. Hello. People are joining late. That's fun. Okay. Now, I've done the blobbing part, right? This is our first layer, wet into wet watercolor. Now I'm going to go in and I'm just going to dry this, get this bone dry. And then we're going to come back and start to add our Inktense for jacking up that luminosity. And we're going to be using this watercolor layer that we've just done here as our first layer, our first wash of color. Okay. Go ahead and dry this. You can see it's really wet. I want it completely dry. So you can dry the back, dry the front. I'm liking it. Really dry that out. Okay, it took a little bit longer because I really want this bone dry. It's actually a little bit wet, but you can see where the paint, even though we did that super, super wet washy, just kind of stained the paper. Look, there's like a little heart right there. I love that when little hearts pop up. Let's just go ahead and dry. Make sure everything's dry. And what looked super, super vibrant with the watercolor in the water has significantly faded back. See how it's significantly faded back? Love that. That's our first layer, our first wash. Now, if we were going to continue on with just watercolor, we would be going in and doing our second layer of watercolor. But we're going to do a little bit of a mixed media mashup here. And by mixed media, I mean we're mixing mediums. We're using watercolor and we're using Inktense. So let's go ahead in. Let's go ahead in with our dark purple and our deep violet. And let's just examine what these colors look like. Now this has got a really nice sharp point to it. My dark purple does not have a sharp point to it. So let's go ahead and open up my, hello, little late to the party, but definitely watch the replay, no worries. I'm just gonna go ahead and sharpen this. Find the spot in the sharpener. That was not the spot. Okay. Find the right sharpener. This sharpener has 3 different, there we go, 3 different sharpen holes. And I got it stuck in the one. Go figure. All right, what I'm doing is just really getting this sharp because I want to have a lot of color to work with. Now, let's bring in a piece of watercolor paper. I have some swatches over here, some other colors that I was kind of playing with first. So let me just go ahead and swatch in this dark purple so you can see it. Now, you can see that I'm holding the pencil really, really far out. That gives me the ability to apply color to the paper, and I feel like I have the most control because I am using the side tip of the pencil. If I kind of choke up on the pencil, I will have a tendency to be a little bit harsher on my paper and damage the fibers of the paper, because you can see that I'm kind of going down in this fashion, where if I hold it out just a little bit out to the edge, I'm able to really get a good concentration of that color from the side of the pencil. Just totally nerded out there, friends. Okay, that's the dark purple. And then this is the deep violet. So what I'm doing here is just swatching down some of this color so that you can see it. Then we're going to decide what I'm going to go in and start adding color to our project with. So let's just take a look at that. Now, Inktense is water soluble and activates completely with water. And it is super vibrant. It's like electric vibrant, isn't it? It's very, very vibrant. And you can really change the value of it by adding more water. So see how I'm changing the value of that color? So I can go from a really dark version of that color to a really light version. Love that. All right, here's the next color. Here is that deeper purple, which is very much like Moon Glow. Moon Glow from Daniel Smith. I love it. It's a granulating color. So this color is very similar to that. Yeah, Karen Hightower's in the house. Hello, Karen. All right, there we go. Hi, Zan. Zan just popped in. So we've got this darker color and we have this lighter color. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to go in and start adding some color with our deep violet, and then we're going to add some finishing accents with the dark purple. So let me just pull our piece in here. Love, look at the mess I got going here. Hello. Okay, now what I'm going to do is we've got 3 large blooms here. We're going to take care of the leafery last. But first, what we want to do is we want to start to apply some color to our petals. And I'm not choked up here. I'm holding my hand out pretty far on the pencil because I really want to apply this color from the side of the pencil. And I'm just kind of going in and following the edge of this petal. I'm going to apply some color here around my edges here. And then we're going to activate it with water. Now you can see, let's see if I need to come in a little bit tighter. Maybe. My zoom, I don't want to zoom in. This zoom is like all or nothing. You tap it and it goes in, or you know, it's just crazy. It cracks me up. And I was just gently tapping it, trying to go in. But this helps us get in a little bit deeper. So you can see that I'm just kind of applying some of this color to my edges here. Now, you could do this technique today. If you don't have Inktense and you're not interested, you could use your colored pencils. You could do this technique with your watercolor pencils. Color pencils a little bit different. And we'll save that and touch on that another month since we're focusing on the water-soluble mediums. and how Inktense blends with watercolor, blends with Gina K inks, blends how we can mash this up. And one of the reasons why, and I shared this last week, I've been sharing our water-based mediums in a pencil form or in marker form, is because you feel like you have a lot more control. So if you're heading into watercolor or getting to experiment with it a little bit more or learning more, sometimes starting with these pencil-based mediums help you build up your skills. Okay? So you can see I've just got a nice little layer here, and I'm going to go around. I'm going to go on the opposite, and I'm going to do the same thing and just add a little bit into the center. I'm going to work 2 petals at a time. I'm not going really intense. I'm not filling in the white of the paper so that I have a solid, because we're going to blend this color out. Okay, now let's start in, let's see, I've got a round brush. I've got a number 6 here. Coming in with a little bit of a smaller brush, and I want to just start to add some water to this and activate this. And you can see it gets super activated. I'm choked up really far on my brush here, right up to the ferrule of the brush, because I'm really just kind of dropping in some water. And we're going to use what I have here as paint to paint our petal. So ultimately, our final product today is going to have a level of intensity to it with a little bit of washy watercolor around it. Okay, I've got that petal. That petal is really intense. I'm going to turn this around, and I'm going to start to just, my brush is clean, start to just feather this out and use what's here and draw it and drag it across as my paint. So you can see that we've got a really controlled kind of watercolor effect happening. Oh, I'm digging that. I'm digging the way that looks. Okay, so I've got a really intense amount of color here. I'm going to try to drag that around to the tip of that, to the tip there, and just kind of feathering it out. You can see that I'm not adding any more color to the tip. I'm just using what's here and working with it and kind of preserving some of my light to dark areas. That's so intense. I love it. Now, another way that you could do that, where is my color? I laid it down. Where did I lay it down? The dark purple, the deep violet. There we go. Another way that you could use the color is, let me double check something. Yeah, deep violet is you could take your brush to the tip and you could paint with it. We're going to get into that particular technique a little bit more this month when I share the Inktense blocks and some fun techniques with the blocks. The blocks are just going to, their blocks are really fun. You can do all the same techniques that I'm going to share today, but the blocks we can do a couple different ones that make it kind of fun. So we've done some washy watercolor and done our first layer, and we are doing a direct to paper application of our Derwent Inktense. I keep wanting to say colored pencil because they are a pencil, but they're different. They're very different. Is it something that you need in your stash if you don't have it and you have watercolor pencils? Absolutely not. You don't need it in your stash. If it's something that you enjoy and you want to experiment with, you can start off small with a smaller set. I think it's a 72 set. I'm not sure. Or you can start off like with the pan set. The pan sets are pretty inexpensive. You can see I'm using this color and I'm just kind of moving it around. You could do the same kind of technique with your watercolor pencils, but our difference here is that when this dries, it's permanent. I won't be able to come back and move it. Although that's up for debate because I have dried some things and I was able to move some colors before. But technically, when it dries, you're not able to move it. Zan, good question. Did you already talk about how these are different from watercolor pencils? Kind of, but I'll be going over it as we go along. So one of the differences why these are different from watercolors, it's kind of like what I'm saying and what I've been saying is they're super vibrant. Watercolor pencils are super vibrant. The big difference here is that they're permanent when dry, and they are light fast, just like watercolor pencils, but permanent when dry. And they are pigment based, high concentration. They are like ink, so they have kind of like an ink wash to them. So I'm liking that little bit of texture that's happened here. See how I haven't broken down that pigment all the way to be super smoothie? We've got that texture from applying that color with our pencil and the paper. All right, let's go in. I keep looking at my deep violet, making sure I have the right color. Now let's go in and start to do our other petals. And we're going to start to see things coming forward and backward. And what I'm doing right now by working one petal at a time and then activating that pigment and releasing it is we're bringing our project, our wildflowers, our violas here to life, to 3D. Okay. So I'm not choked up. I'm kind of holding it out here using the side. And I'm going to apply some color around this side. You can see I'm leaving some white of the paper, and you need very, very little of this color. I'm going to do that for this one over here. I'm not touching this area right here because I have a petal here and a petal here. And for definition between these two petals, I want that to be the dominant one. So I'm going to come in. I've got some in the illustration that I had a little bit of detail here. We're going to just go over it. We're going to edit it out. We're going to edit it out. I'm going to leave that center though. So I'm just going to edit that out, kind of come around it, and then apply some color, but you can see I'm leaving a little bit of space here. Applying some color all the way around, just kind of midway. Okay. I think I'm going to go ahead and apply all the color to the other two. Maybe not. Let's do the first one. Okay. Let's do the first one and see how we feel. Now here, I'm just going to apply some color. And again, I'm just choked up. And I'm just going to apply this color. And I'm going to go around my edge. I'm going to come up around my edge a little bit of that petal. All right, I'm digging that. Now, it looks kind of like a hot mess, right? But look how beautiful it is once we start to release that color. So let's go ahead. Let's go in. Brush is wet, but not sopping wet. I've got my towel close by, and I'm just kind of rolling. If your brush is sopping wet, and you really just kind of want to not get all the color out, you can just roll it. Like roll it on the edge of your towel. And that just kind of removes some of the water from the base. Okay, let's go in. I think I'm going to need a little bit of water. I removed a little bit too much water. And you can see I'm just dropping, I'm just dancing my brush around the color here and activating it. Now, if I really wanted to remove that texture, I would really kind of be going in with more of a stroke technique. Clean off my brush. Now, brush is wet, paper's dry. We've got wet ink here, and I'm just going to start to feather it out. Use what's here. And if your brush feels like it's too wet, you can just take some of that color off, take some of that wetness off, because it's got a lot of pigment here. Look at that. So pretty. And I'm going to come along this edge, but very lightly. And you can see that that color right there is not moving. Now, if I was working with watercolor pencils or water, this color right here on this petal would be moving. And I'd have to be a little bit more careful about what I'm going up to that edge of that line. All right, cleaning off my brush. I'm going to just kind of feather this out. My brush is wet, paper's dry. Feathering this out just a little bit. I want to keep that texture there. The way that the texture of the paper, you can see how much texture is in this watercolor paper. And when you apply the Inktense to it, it's kind of just hitting the top part of the fiber of the paper. So if I would have went in a little more intense with it, I could have gotten a really solid block of color and you wouldn't see any white paper. But we don't need to do that. You need very, very little of this color to get it to disperse. Love it. Okay. All right, let's come down here. I'm doing the same thing. My brush is wet, paper's dry. Oh, look at the time. Friends, we are going to run over the hour today. Maybe not. We'll see. Because I'm kind of nerding out quite a bit and chatting. Look how intense that color is. It is whoosh. So my brush is wet, and I just kind of keep dabbing it off a little bit. And what I'm doing is dancing it around and just kind of feathering this color out. I want to leave some of those really intense that intense darkness right there. Just leave it. Brush is clean. And then I'm just going to come right up against this edge. Notice how that edge is not moving. See how that watercolor is, the Inktense is not moving? So I'm able to get that nice definition between this petal and this petal. Love it! So you can start to see that the petals, what's coming forward, what's coming backward, it's starting to have a little bit of 3D to it. Digging it. Now, the other cool thing about these pencils as a medium is you can layer them, but you can layer watercolor pencils too. But I think my favorite thing, I don't always grab these pencils, and I feel like I should. And because last week you all asked, several of you asked to kind of take a deep dive into it, and I was like, yeah, we're gonna spend March doing it, right? And just kind of break down our techniques and spend some time learning these pencils together and playing with them. And then you can make some decisions as to whether or not this is a medium that's for you. Now, today we're painting a line art image illustration of mine. But as you can see, you would easily be able to apply these techniques to your stamped images, right? Because essentially we're painting and chatting today, and you could look at it as it's like a big honkin' stamped image. I'm loving that. I'm loving the way this petal looks. Zan just asked, can the colors be mixed to create new colors? Yes, I'll do some color mixing to kind of show you that, but absolutely, just like watercolor pencils, just like color pencils, you can absolutely mix them together to create new colors. I need to take a sip of water because I can feel myself getting super chatty. Okay, now I'm going to let this dry. Now, one of the things about Inktense is when it dries back, it's not like watercolor in that it fades back like a value, like a couple values, and gets lighter. When it dries, it's pretty intense. It may fade back just a smidge. You can see, like this petal right here is already dry, and it hasn't really faded back. It's pretty bright and vibrant from when I first started it. But you can layer on more color to jack up that luminosity. Cheryl just shared, I would like to know or explore how and when to use blacks and grays. I know I can change the value of a color with them, but not sure how else to use them. Cheryl, that's great. Yeah, we'll get into that. I think that's a really great comment. Really great suggestion. Thank you, Cheryl. We'll make a whole tutorial out of that. Okay, now I'm going to move on to these other petals. And what I'm going to do, I keep checking my pencil. See, so look at that edge of that pencil, that deep violet. It's pretty dark. It almost looks black. So the ends of the colors aren't really accurate, in my opinion. That's why I wish the whole barrel was the color. But like with colored pencils or watercolor pencils, you really do need to like kind of swatch them out to get familiar with them so that you can see. And like, here's our deep violet right here. Look, they kind of mix together. We got a color mix right there. Anyway, all right, I'm going to take my other two violas here, and I'm going to go around and we're going to apply our color to both of them, and then we're going to go back and paint. So again, the purpose of our techniques today and the purpose of this tutorial and sharing this medium is to also share like our controlled way, very controlled way to do watercolor. Just kind of coming up. I'm holding my pencil. You can see I kind of rotate my pencil a little bit just to get some color down. Now, while I'm applying this color, if you have any questions, don't hesitate. Oh, Zan just popped in the chat. Zan, that's very nice. And again, I will list some links for supplies after. I thought I actually thought I had already done it, and then I realized, oh, at least you didn't do this. You didn't do it. Way to go, girl. Zan just shared Amazon has a great price on the 6 pencil set that includes ink black, field green, bright blue, violet, poppy red, and sun yellow. That's a great set. It's versatile enough to do a little bit of color mixing. And I'll come back to that, Zan, in a second. You don't need the whole 72 set. Like, the set of 6 is a good place to start for getting to know the product. And then if you have trouble seeing where you are, don't forget, print it out and then you have a reference. So like I'm having trouble seeing my line here, so I know there's a line like right in there somewhere. I'm just going to apply some color right there and around that edge. Well, that's a great price, Ann. $14. That's a really great price. Catherine just shared, this is such great info and demo. I have to leave. No worries. Catch the replay. Have a great day. Okay. So starting out with a little set of 6, like I said, can be really helpful to get to know the product. If I'm looking at what's there, bright blue, violet, poppy red, they're basically giving you the RGB colors. So all of the colors that you can use to mix other colors in that set, which is kind of great. Cheryl just shared, I'm so grateful you are doing this tutorial. I have some of these pencils but haven't used them. Great. That's great. Get them out. All right, I'm going to continue to apply some color here. And while I'm applying, we can just do this will be the chat part of our tutorial. So, chat about what's going on, friends. Super windy here in Maryland today. It rained all day yesterday, and we desperately need the rain, which is nice. We got some rain. And super fun. We've got our Gina K. Our March release is happening next Tuesday. Unless that changes, which I don't think it will. It might. I know Gina's been sick with the flu. I hope she's starting to feel a little bit better. That's the worst. The flu's the worst. And I'm not sure if she's going live today. So I guess we'll see. But technically, right now, the new release is happening next Tuesday. I'm super excited. I think my stamps are arriving this today or tomorrow so I could start to work on my samples. I'm super excited. I got something different happening in this new release. I know I say that every month that it's my favorite, but this stamp set coming is like, it's going to be like one of my fan favorites. So Cheryl just shared, I also fill in my set collection with other colors through Blick. Yes. So the other thing is you can buy these in sets, and you can also buy them in a la carte, like one at a time if you want. Okay. Now we're going to go in and start to apply some water to break up our pigment. And if I need, my brush is a little bit too wet, so I'm just kind of drying it. You can see I'm choked up, and I'm just using what's here as my paint. Oh, this color is so vibrant. You can see you need very, very little down on your project to really get it activated. Ah! I'm just keep going back here and taking a peek at my reference. All right, I'm going to come across. I'm going across. Oh, it is so vibrant. Love it. I'm kind of leaving the centers of my petals open. And then just using what's here as my paint. Oh, that's so pretty. These colors are so pretty. Well, this color. We're only using one. Okay. Now, coming around. Coming around. And then I'm just using wet into dry and working with what's here and just using what I applied as my paint. Oh, I love this. Zan, exactly. You love that you can use this medium on non-port other pour surfaces like wood and fabric, and it will be permanent. Ooh, we've got a lot of, this is intense. All right, my brush is wet. Paper's wet. I'm going to just lift up. So you can do some lifting. I'm just going to lift out some of this color while it's still wet to bring back some of the highlights. So see how that big petal up there has a highlight? That's what I'm doing. So you can do that with this medium, but you have to do it when it's wet. Because when it's dry, I can't go back and make that move. And we're gonna experiment a little bit with that in a moment. Zan just shared, this feels like a silly question, but do they need a special pencil? No. No, Zan, I just use this pencil sharpener. And in the beginning, if you popped in late, you saw me get on the struggle bus trying to use it because I stuck my pencil in the wrong one. But no, doesn't need a special pencil sharpener. Just a nice pencil sharpener that works. All right, gonna come in, use this color, breaking up that pigment. Breaking up the pigment. I'm glad that you all asked for this tutorial because I feel like I've always loved these pencils for the purposes of what we're doing here, which is really like that level of precision, but I want that watercolor, controlled watercolor look. All right, gonna come in and do the same with this petal. Kind of moving a little bit faster. We're definitely gonna run over the hour today, friends. So my apologies, but we are doing a paint and chat, and this is kind of full-on lesson, right? Full-on lesson. Loving that. I just kind of keep turning my page around. I'm going to turn this around. Our leafery is going to come together super quick because we're focusing so much on our depth of color in the petals. The leafery is going to come together. All right, let's go ahead over here. we could have even used, I could have even used a lot less. I could have applied a lot less color. So you can see that the medium, if you invested in this, you would have it for a very, very long time. The pencils aren't going to, you probably have it your entire lifetime. I mean, I've had my set for 15 years. So you can see it's very, very efficient use of color. Digging that. Oh, Cheryl, thank you. Gina's not going live. Karen is here. Karen's with us too. Karen's still here. Oh, she must still be super, super sick. And I didn't want to text her when I heard that she was sick. Because when you're sick, friends, well, first of all, when you're sick and you're female, no offense to any of our men that are joining us, we just keep going, don't we? Because we have things to take care of and people to take care of and stuff. So, but when you're sick with the flu, man, and you're laid out, you just can't keep up. So everybody texting is wonderful, but you just can't keep up because you're just trying to rest. So that's how I have felt. I didn't want to text her because I didn't want her to feel like she needs to respond, right? Yes, you're right, Mary. Gina needs to give herself some time to get over it. Agreed. The flu is the worst. I mainly get like sinus issues in the winter, like and nasal, that drip that goes to the back of your throat, which makes it a little bit hard sometimes to talk. And I lost my voice last month. Same reason. I always get some sinus issues in the winter. And I think it's because you're closed in. So I'm using this little bit of color that we have here. It's wet. My brush is wet, and I'm just going to use what I have. And I'm going to just feather it out right to my edge here. And you can see I'm running my brush along this edge, but that color right there on that petal is not moving, because when it dries, Inktense is permanent. So you could get it to move, and I'm going to show you, but you really got to scrape at it to get it to move. So that's kind of another really unique thing about Inktense, and you might find useful if this is something you're interested in moving into watercolor this very controlled way with pencils, is that you have a lot more control over your brush touching things and not touching things. And if it does touch an area you've already done, you know that you're not going to blow it out, right? Because that color is just not going to move. Okay. Still, look at the texture that we've got going, because I didn't scrub our paper and really get that pigment off of the fiber of the paper. Now, the paper that I'm using, that's good. That will be a little bit different depending upon what paper you're using. I'm using an 100% cotton Arches paper, and honestly, friends, it's because it was what was sitting on my desk. You could use a cellulose paper like Canson. I feel like Inktense pencils, and if we have some time, I'll show you. If not, I'll cover it in another tutorial this month. I feel like Inktense pencils and Inktense products work really well with the cellulose papers like Canson. And what I mean by cellulose is that the paper isn't 100% cotton. It's wood pulp, and it's compressed. And I love it for certain things like inks and other mediums, but mostly inks, painting watercolor inks on that kind of paper. So because Inktense is an ink, it's going to work really, really well on that particular paper. Okay, let's just go ahead and add some more. This color is intense. Another way people use their pencils, another way to use your pencils, see how I'm coming right up to this edge and just kind of feathering out my color, but that line right there is not moving. It's brilliant. Okay, love it. Okay, I'm going to come back over here, and because that's still wet, I'm going to be able to move it a little bit. I'm just going to run my wet brush over it and just pull that away a little bit. Now, see that hard line I've got right there? It's still wet, so I'm just going to add a little bit more color and just kind of feather it out a little bit. Just feather it out. Because what was happening is a little bit of blooming. So because that area was super, super wet, it kind of pushes the color back. So with the blooming, if I have a wet brush and I have a lot of pigment, and that kind of happened right there, but I'm okay with it, it's pushing the color, the water's pushing all the pigment back. So it's not as super smooth as maybe like this area or this area. But I'm digging it. I'm digging it. For a first layer, I'm loving it. Loving the way it looks. And just ordered the 6 pencil set. And if we have some time, we can look at those colors from the 6 pencil set on the chart. Or what I'll do is we'll show the chart and you can take a quick screenshot. Now I'm going to dry all this completely. Mainly so that you can see a lot of it's already dry. This is it, and it dries really fast. Mainly so that you can see how the color for Inktense does not shift back. It doesn't shift back like a normal watercolor or watercolor pencil. It's mostly dry, and I'm just really getting it nice and dry. Boop, boop. Look at that. That's so vibrant. All right. Now, what I really want to do is I want to come in. I have that other purple. Before we get to the leafery, I want to come in and add a little bit of a rose color so that I can show you the layering. But I don't want to add another purple to deepen the hue of purple. I want to add a little bit, of a rose so that you get that variation of color a little bit. Bye, Tressa. Yeah, I'm running over today, friends, but hopefully not too much. Let me grab the deep rose here. And I'm going to show you a little bit of a different technique of what I'm going to do. Now, and I'm looking for a piece of watercolor paper. I'm going to use this right here. So you can use your pencil, and like I said, we can paint right from the tip of the pencil. Or here's another great way. I can just apply some of this color down onto a piece of paper. Okay, so essentially I'm swatching some color down on a paper, but you can see I've got a pretty intense level of color, pretty layered up colors. Run over all you want. Well, when we do the paint and chats, I tend to run over because this stuff takes a little bit longer to dive in and go deep and actually do a project. So we're essentially doing a class together. Okay, right here for free on YouTube. All right, I'm taking my water and I'm just going to apply it to this swatch and just kind of pick it up. Okay, and then, oh, what I wanted to do before I do that, I'm going to take a different brush. I just want to drop a little bit of water in one of these petals just so that you see. And I'm just going to drop some of that color in. Look how intense that is. It's very intense, but that's okay. See how that droplet of water did not pull any of the color away? I really just want to tint my paper here a little bit with this Inktense rose. That rose is really intense, and I'm really just tinting it up just a little bit to add that little tiny bit of rose there, but it's a wet into wet process. So I am lifting it up and using that extra piece of watercolor paper as my palette. But I'm just going to drop a little bit of water in. So, and just add a little bit of that rose. And because it's dry, it's kind of laying on top. So I'm not lifting any of the purple that's underneath. I'm just laying it right on top here. Woo, it's super windy out there. Oh, look at the I just got like super excited. Look at that luminosity by layering those two colors together. Love it. All right, just going to add a little bit of water here. Hopefully you didn't just hear my tummy grumble. Add a little bit of that rose right on top. And then I'm just going to clean my brush and just feather it out a little bit. Dance my brush around, feather it out, and really kind of jacked up that luminosity. Feather, feather, feather. So all the while, I added that layer color on top. It didn't lift anything up from underneath of it, but it did add some level of intensity of color to it. And that's what I really, really like about these pencils. Not different from, the difference is, as I'm adding layers on top, I'm not lifting color from underneath. So with our traditional watercolor and our watercolor pencils, you can reactivate the color after it has dried because it's watercolor and you can reactivate it, reanimate it, so to speak. But with our Inktense, I'm able to apply this very luminous, transparent color over top of another transparent color without lifting the color that's underneath. So I'm working a little bit more efficiently to get that glazing or layering of color happening. Digging it. All right, I'm going to step away from our blooms, and we're going to come in. Gloria says, love it when the artist gets excited. I hold back sometimes, friends, because I feel my energy starting to approach DEFCON 10 on the nerd scale. So sometimes I hold back. All right, I'm going to come in with the leafy green. And I'm actually just going to, I'm choked up on the pencil, and we're going to draw these lines in. Just follow the line work here and draw the lines in. And then I will come back in with the pencil. Come back in with the brush, and we'll activate it so that it doesn't look, so that it bleeds a little bit better. So again, just going in very traditionally like a pencil and messing with it. Now I'm probably going to come in with a little bit smaller brush on number 2. Hi Terry, my cousin's in the house. She says beautiful springtime colors. Come on, friends. So Terry lives in the same state as I do, and we are in like wind central today. And it was absolutely beautiful earlier today. Like the sun was out and then it went back in. So I call this fake spring, where things start to pop up and it's cold, it's nice and warm for a few days, and we get to feeling like it's going to be warm and our spring is coming, and then all of a sudden we get shampooed with some colder temperatures and some wind. But it's March, so we're still in winter. So I'm using this fine brush and I'm just activating that color a little bit just to bleed it, but I'm not going to like bleed it out too intensely. So you're going to still see some of the granulation of that color. That adds a lot of texture and dimension to the project too, where everything isn't super smoothied out, right? All of our colors aren't super smooth. We've done watercolor projects where we've done smoothie watercolor. This is a little bit different. We're mixing our mediums where we've blobbed in some watercolor and then we've layered up with some Inktense, and some of the Inktense colors are really blended out and some of them aren't, so that we get texture, and that creates a little bit more variety, a little bit more interest for your overall composition. And you could take this project and make it into a card if you wanted to. You could even frame it. And here's the thing about the watercolors that we've used, and here's the thing about Inktense, is that it's light fast. So you could frame it and it's not going to fade. You've created your own little piece of artwork. Okay, now I'm going to leave those stems the way they are, and we're going to do the technique that we did here with adding that little bit of rose in those petals with that leafy green. Maybe we'll do light olive. Let's do some light olive and see what that looks like. So here's our light olive. I'm just going to apply this down to our paper. And see, I'm just getting a really nice solid swatch of that color. I need to change brushes. That brush is too small. And then pop in with my number 6 round. And then just go ahead and pick up some of that color. And we're going to do direct to paper. So brush is wet, paper is dry. I've got all my pigment right on my brush. And then I'm just going to follow my lines of the illustration and just kind of pop some of that color in and just use it as my paint. Clean off my brush and then just use what's here to paint the rest of it. So that way I'm getting a little bit of variation with my leafery, dark to light. So see how we use the ink by doing direct to paper. Well, brush is wet, paper is dry. We're using our Inktense swatch as a paint. So we've got much more smoothie look, right? So we've got a variety of texture here when we applied our Inktense pencil to the petals direct to paper. And now we're painting on direct to paper. And we've got more of a smoothie look. Let's pick up some of that color. Oh, the wind just died down for a minute. And now because I said it, it'll probably start to kick in. I worry about when the wind kicks in like that because here, where I live, the wind knocks the power out all the time. And it absolutely knocks the internet out. All right, I can add a little bit more. So see how I can just keep applying some of that. This is dry now. Nope, it was a little bit wet. Let's see, I could add a little bit more and jack up that luminosity a little bit. Oh, I love it. Okay, let's go in and do a little bit more on our petals here. Start with our dark part at the top. I need to grab a little bit more. See how I'm just using this as my palette? So the other thing about thinking about Inktense or using a watercolor pencil or a medium in pencil form that's water soluble like this is that you have lots of ways to use it and lots of ways to traditionally paint with it. So if you're short, it's great to transport around. If you're short on space, like last week we've been working with watercolor markers, so similar kind of situation here, a lot more controlled watercolor techniques. You don't need to have all the things. If you have some of these things, you can just use them to the max, right? You can use them as a pencil, you can use them and swatch them down and then use the paint to paint in. I'm just cleaning off my brush, really getting some of that water off and just using what's here. Oh, I'm loving this leafery. Loving it. And I think with our leafery, we're probably not going to add a lot of deeper tone texture to it. Oh, thank you, Gloria. She said, remember to give me a like. Yeah. Like and subscribe. I know we hear that a lot on YouTube, but like and subscribe. That way you're able to get notifications right away when there's new videos. Oh, I'm loving this leafery. Look at the smoothie leafery up against the stem that has some texture. Love it. All right, we've got one more little piece here. One more little tiny bit of leafery, and then we'll be wrapping up. Boop, boop, boop. I'm going to use this last little bit on my palette here. And drop that in. Ooh, that's a lot. My brush is super wet. Let's use what's here. If Terry's still here, say hi to Aunt Joyce. Say hi to your mama for me. Okay. All right. Now, if I wanted, that was the olive color. If I wanted to add a little more intensity, I could go in with the leafy green, which is the color we used here. Let me just make a little block for myself. Karen said, this is gorgeous. Yes. So, friends, think about, like, so today we were doing a paint and chat. Oh, I need to add a little bit of water. I've got a lot of pigment on my brush. You guys cracking me up with the... I'm going to add a little bit of water. And see how the Inktense underneath there is not moving? I'm adding water to a dried area because I want to add a layer of this Inktense with that darker leafy green. Let it do its thing. Let it blend and let it mix. When I'm feeling like I want to do watercolor, and I've been feeling this way because the last couple projects that we've done have been with watercolor markers, or look at that level of intent. Total nerd out. Like, look, we have beautiful leafery here that was just very, very pretty, but a little bit flat. Just by adding that little tiny bit, I'm going to add a little bit of water up here, a little bit of water here, and a little bit of water here. Notice how that color didn't move underneath it. Pick up some of this darker. This is just such, using these mediums and learning how to use them, especially you might have this in your stash and because, you know, you got interested in it. And maybe you just didn't have someone showing you all the different ways you could use it. And now that's what I'm here for. Frozen. Uh-oh. Frozen. Uh-oh. Let me know if I'm still frozen, friends, while I check my signal to see if we're still connected. Okay. Okay. We're still connected. Frozen here. Maybe the wind. Yes. Hold on, friends. Hold on. It looks like my internet is still connected. But I'm going to be really disappointed if it isn't. Okay, we're back. Thank you, Zan. I checked my network connections. I am hardwired to our internet here, so I get the fastest of the fastest, right? Great, she's back. All right, if someone could drop in the chat, what was the last thing you heard before I froze? Let me know so I could double back, okay? Oh my goodness. I think where I was on adding intensity of color to the leafery. But let me know in the chat someone like where we kind of left off. We're getting really, really close to being at the end here. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow in. I've got this cadmium yellow. If we lose you, Lisa, we'll look for your post for the final. Okay. So everybody can see me. Yeah, my cousin Terry said she's frozen too. Can everybody see me? It looks like we have 28 people watching right now. That's a lot. Thank you. Let me know if you can see me. And I'm not frozen. So I can kind of just move on to this next step. Cheryl said I'm back. Zan said I'm back. Okay, good. Terry said I'm back. Not frozen now. Okay. Rhonda still says no. Okay now. So in general, I think I'm okay. Karen says no. Wow. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to keep going because it looks like I'm okay or I'm better. So I'm going to just go in and add a little bit of yellow to my centers here. And I'm literally just kind of coming in and adding a big wad of it, right? Now over here, I'm going in really heavy because I had I kind of went over the middle a little bit with the purple. And I'm not going to bleed this out. I'm just going to add a little bit of water. Just kind of jack up that color, but you can see this one is a little darker, but that's okay. I'm going to leave it. I'm loving the way this looks. Look at that texture. Look at that dimension. And I'm wondering if we need to quit. If somebody could pop in the chat, Karen, if you can hear, and Rhonda, if you can hear, if everything is still frozen. Or maybe you meant, no, I'm not frozen. It's so funny. It's just a wild day, friends. All right, Cheryl said, yes, the intensity of the leafery is where I left off. Okay. Don't think we lost anything. You just froze a couple of times. Oh, okay, great. Okay, so I did leave off at that intensity of the leafery, and I just added in some of that yellow. Now, since we're already running, hi Sarah, since we're already running over, I'm going to show you, we did our little bit of a blob of color. So we've got like some color around it. So that's kind of in our background, and all of our leaves and our petals are coming forward. This definitely has more of a 3D look to it. Now, what I want to show you is what happens if I want to create more washy-washy effects around the edges of it. Will the Inktense bleed and move? It's not supposed to. Let's see what happens. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring back in our watercolor. And I'm just going to take a little bit of water to this edge and add in a little bit more washy color. Notice how that didn't move? Wow. Now, sometimes I feel like it does move, but it's not moving now. So when I say that it dries and it's permanent, that's what I mean. I'm just going to add a little bit in here. So I have it reactivated. It's like I'm not reactivating this color underneath. I could have done this first, like added a lot more of this when we first did the beginning, just to add that intensity. Oh, I'm loving this. Loving this. All right, I'm going to leave it. Just adding a little bit more. Little water. So again, this is our little finishing touch. See how I'm running my brush over that green? It's not moving. Yeesh! How fun is that? I'm going to add a little bit of blue. This little This is manganese blue from Daniel Smith. I'm going to add a little bit of that blue. Just being fancy. We're just being fancy now, right? Adding a little bit of color in. Just a little bit of wet into wet. I love it. Let's keep running over. This is so much fun. Well, it is paint and chat. It isn't making a card, right? So paint and chat's going to be paint and chat. It's going to take a little longer for some certain things. I'm digging this. And adding that little bit of manganese blue hue really kind of jacked up jacked it up a little bit. And I love it. Jacked up that luminosity. A little bit of piece of paper there. So just showing you how this doesn't move. Now I want to show you real quick and then we'll finish out. So like here were some of my samples from before. This is definitely dry. And that is a Derwent Inktense. So let's go over it because it is permanent when it's dry and it's not supposed to move. And we've shown that in today's image, but I have made things move before. So this is moving a little bit. You can see you can make it move a little bit even after it's dried, but not much, see? So that's a really intense color. Let's see if I can get this to move. It's moving a little bit, but I'm not able to really move that dot, that really intense level, that intense dot. So experiment with it. I like it because it is dry when it is permanent when dry. So in my mind, what that means to me is, oh, if I come back to it, I'm going to feather this out. I can see a little bit of a water line there. What that means to me is if I come back to this, say like 2 days later, and I'm like, oh, let me add a little bit of yellow, or let me add a little bit of rose back in here and do some glazing and layering, I'm going to be confident that I can go ahead and do that without lifting up too many or any of the layers underneath of it and reactivating or reanimating that color and then creating a little bit more of a wishy-washy mess. So, but the beautiful thing about watercolor in general is that you can do that. And it's very forgiving and you can lift it up and you can move it around. So with Inktense, you can still do all those same things. Lift it up, move it around when it's wet. When it's dry, it's just a little bit harder to work with. So, okay. All right, friends, this came out really, really well. And I hope if you're doing this project live, I hope it's going really, really well with your Inktense. I hope you enjoy it. Please share it. Email it to me, share it, tag me, all the things. I would love to see it. If you're doing this, like watching this later and doing this whole class tutorial with the download, I hope you're enjoying it. I just hope you are having a ton of fun with it. Okay. All right, friends, I'm going to come back to the front camera. We ran over today. It went an hour and a half. But you know what? It's Paint and Chat. We do this once a month. We chat. We go deeper and learning techniques. And this entire month, I'm going to be focusing on bringing in Inktense to our paper crafting and painting projects. And we're going to continue to learn more with this particular product. So I am going to mash it up with my Gina K, with Gina K inks and my new Gina K stamp set. No worries, Lynn. Okay, friends, thanks so much for joining me today. I am sending you into the weekend to craft your joy. I hope you found this tutorial super valuable. Would love it if you'd hit subscribe and thumbs up and all those things. We did have this tutorial today ad free. If you're watching this on the replay, there will be ads. Sorry. There will be ads. But I hope you got a lot out of today's tutorial. And I can't even. Look at this. This came out even way better than I thought it was in my head. I could easily turn this into a card, or we could easily just pop it into a frame for spring. How fun is that? How fun is that? Okay. All right, friends. I am going to say goodbye, but I would encourage you, if you're at all interested in following me, and following my YouTube tutorials and my classes and all the things, all my Gina K releases, hop on my email list. I send out an email once a week. You get this information. You get a lot of freebies. It's just the best way without clutter for finding out what's happening next, right? And also, please consider joining my free community. I've built this community on the Mighty Network You can find that information down below. It's craftyourjoylab.com. And it is chock full of goodness. It's ad free. It is like clutter free. Like in social media is not clutter free. But I've built my own community where you can go in and you can we can talk to each other. All of us in the community can talk to each other. You can share. You can get feedback from me. And I also do a private lesson in that community once a month that's just in that community. It's not anywhere else. So, okay, friends. Beautiful live today, cousin. I'm just checking. Inktense. Can't wait to play with your Inktense. If you have your Inktense, get them out and download this illustration and rewatch the tutorial and have some fun with it. I'm really glad that everybody's enjoying this class. Sarah said, I found you. I'm happy. Teach me. Your work is BEA. I think you meant beautiful, right? Okay. All right, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. I'm just so excited that you were here today. I'm so excited that we ran over because it was a really, really fun tutorial today. So thanks so much. Oh, Chrissy just asked, do you have a regular schedule of lives? Today is my first, but would love to add it to my calendar. Christy, in general, I go live on Thursdays because at this time in my life, it works well on Thursdays. Sometimes I've gone live on Wednesdays, but mostly Thursdays. 11:30ish, 12 or 1. 11:30 seems to be the magic spot. And yeah, so that's in general what happens. And I always send an email out to all of my email subscribers with the link so you get it ahead of time and you're able to kind of prepare, but it's generally on Thursdays. So, and I will be back next week with the brand new Gina K release. If that's, there may be some changes in that timeline because I know Gina has the flu, so I'll keep you posted. But if I'm back next week, I'll have a new tutorial next Thursday. If we are releasing our Gina K release, it's going to be a brand new card release and a mashup with that. I cannot wait to share that with you. If it isn't, we'll do something else. No worries. Okay, friends, thanks so much. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time.